our Spiceworks and vPro live demo. In this session, we're going to show you the vPro functions that are integrated into Spiceworks. I'm going to show them to you live, take you through it step by step so you can see what you've got waiting there for you as a Spiceworks user. Today from Intel, you've got myself. I'm Scott Schaefer. I'm the program manager here at Intel. I work with small and mid-sized business IT folks, have done so for about 6 years with regard to vPro and its capabilities. And it, as always, is good to be working with you all. With me is my partner, Joe Oster. Joe is a senior support engineer here at Intel. Joe has been working with vPro and vPro solutions almost since it launched. He's been doing this for 8 years. He's been working with Spiceworks users for 2 years. He has a pretty close relationship with the Spiceworks tech team, and he works with Spiceworks customers like you day in and day out. So Joe's a key go-to guy if you wonder about anything with respect to vPro and Spiceworks. And the nice thing is not only do we have him today, but you will have very fast access to Joe after the session, and we'll show you what that means and how you get that access. Before I pitch it over to Joe, I do want to talk about two things. One is a very, very key tool for you, and then one is just a little bit about vPro itself. So the key tool that I want to mention is the Spiceworks V Pro Navigator. So this is an online user's guide, and in one sense, that's all it is. It's just a user's guide. But the reason I'm pointing it out to you is because of the way it was put together. So this was co-developed by Joe and the technical team at Spiceworks. It's absolutely specific to Spiceworks, and it's very, very complete. It's got a ton of detail about how do I discover vPro PCs using Spiceworks, then how within Spiceworks do I provision those PCs so I can use the vPro functions, and then finally using those functions, how do I do that? All Spiceworks specific. It's got a ton of screen captures from Spiceworks. It's very step-by-step, but we think we've got it organized in such a way that you can find what you need very quickly without wading through a 100-page PDF or a 100-page website for that matter. So key tool for you, definitely check it out. The thing about it that you can't see from this screen capture here is that there is an email link for fast help at the bottom of every page in the Spiceworks Navigator, and that email link goes right to Joe's desk. So this really gives you a concierge level of tech support for your use of vPro within Spiceworks. Highly recommend you guys take advantage of it. This is the go-to place for starting to use vPro within Spiceworks or to continue to use it, because whenever anything changes, we update this in real time. So it's at msp.intel.com/Spiceworks Navigator. It's fairly easy to remember, but you might want to write that down. And I would just also point out, if you go to msp.intel.com, that is our key vPro site. And everything we talk about today and a whole bunch of other stuff, it's pretty easy to navigate your way around there. So if you just went to msp.intel.com, you would find the Spiceworks Navigator. So that's the key tool I wanted to talk about. The second thing to mention is, in a nutshell, what is vPro? So I want to do this very quickly, spend about 2 minutes on this, because what we find as we work with IT professionals in small and mid-sized business, everybody's heard of vPro. Because that's not surprising, because it's not new. It's 9 years old. But few people really know what it is or what it does. So I want to just give you the nutshell version of that, and Joe will show it to you in living color in about a minute. First of all, it's a hardware-based technology. It is not software, and it's not just the processor. It involves the entire motherboard. It's the processor, the NIC card, the chipset, and the firmware. So what this means is you can't make a PC that is not vPro into a vPro PC. It has to have vPro within the motherboard when it leaves the factories. Luckily, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of systems. There are many systems from every major manufacturer, different models that can be vPro enabled, and those are listed on what we call our Find a vPro page, which is at this URL here. And again, if you just go to msp.intel.com, this is in the top navigation bar. It's very easy to find. But that'll let you know what models that both today have vPro, and then what historic models could have come with vPro. And it'll show you the breadth of the availability and which models to look at when you want to select one that's vPro capable. So it is hardware-based. The second thing I want to point out is what it does is pretty simple. It only does two things, and it does those two things within Spiceworks. There's no other tool to buy. There's no other tool to learn. It all lives within Spiceworks. The two things it does is remote power up and power down. It's like Wake on LAN, except it works much, it's robust. It actually works every time, unlike Wake on LAN, as you all know. The second thing it does is a KVM remote control, which is very powerful and means that you can now manage a machine even if the operating system is disabled. Joe will show you all of this, and you'll see the benefit of this firsthand. I think you will like what you see. When you've got those two capabilities, which you don't have without vPro, a lot of things get easier to do. It accelerates time to repair and normal maintenance activities for two reasons. You're doing more remotely than you could do before, and you can do it when you want to do it, meaning when it's convenient to you or when it's convenient to the end user, or both. So ultimately what this means is less having to go to the desk side when you don't really want to, or having the person bring the PC to a service depot, whichever way it works in your environment. But it just makes repairing and maintaining PCs much more efficient. So that's what it does. With that, I'm going to toss this over to Joe Oster. Joe, let me give you the ball here. And you should be able to share your screen. And you are off to the races, Joe.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Scott, for that introduction earlier. Like Scott said, I do have a lot of knowledge about Spiceworks, and I've been with Intel doing the vPro project since 2006. So if you have questions about vPro, I'm definitely the person to be talking to. I am very active in the Spiceworks forums in regards to vPro, so if you want to get a hold of me, you can do that through the forums as well. I do want to go over the Navigator a little bit with you. This is a very good website. This is just Spiceworks or msp.intel.com, Spiceworks Navigator. You log in, and this is what you're going to see. Scott mentioned a link at the bottom of every page. It's right here. It is Navigator Help sw@intelmsp.com. But within this tool, this is kind of like a user guide done right. We update this frequently and as needed. So when you do get in here, just go to the individual tabs, work through your side tabs until you're done, and it will go through all the setup and configuration that you need to do to get it to work in your environment. One of the most powerful features is the FAQs. If there's FAQ questions, you can click on them and you have all sorts of additional information at your disposal. This is very handy because these are questions that people such as yourself have asked us in the past, and we have found these of value and put these up here on the web for you. So please take a look at the Navigator page. It will be a great benefit to you. So how do I get the information, the plugins? Well, basically go to plugins and you can do the Amd Terminal, and this is our primary tool here. You can get the maintenance manager as well. They changed the page on me, I see, but I believe it's this one. Yeah, it's this one here is the one you want. There is a couple people have wrote their own, but the one from us is here. So just go ahead and download them and then get them to work in your environment, and then you will see them on your dashboard. And you can see them in my dashboard here. I have the Intel Power Manager as well as the Amd Terminal will be actually shown once we get into the actual unit. So let's talk about the Maintenance Manager briefly. The Maintenance Manager is nice. It's you can actually do the schedule, do different things with it. Just clean up user-specific command, basically do a command line tool there. You can do these things. How that associates with vPro is it actually uses vPro power on and off commands to start this process and to finish it. So that's how it uses it. It's not something you're going to do on demand on this in the screen. Now the Intel Power Manager, that's pretty cool. You go in here, you set your credentials, you set a schedule, and you can actually schedule PCs to turn off and turn off and then turn back on at a specific time. One of the cool things about having power management such as this, despite the fact that our chipsets are even lower power than they were in the past, which is great news, we can also turn them off. You know, you have some business that, nope, we don't need PCs on at night. Well, you come in here, you can schedule it, and all the PCs will now shut down at, say, 7 o'clock in the morning and wake up at 6:30 very reliably. Nice little feature of the Intel Power Manager. So what we want to do is actually see what this will actually do for us for our remote management. So I have several inventory groups I've created, and you can sort by the fact that they are enabled. So I have several enabled devices within my environment. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Dell E6230. And what I can do, once the plugin is established, it's going to give me a new tab. If you see this tab, you know Spiceworks has determined that it is configured and that I should be able to get to it. So you put in your password and username here, or username and password, and then hit login, and you will see that it'll actually connect. And this information is not cached anywhere. This is actually a direct communication to the device. So this is all real-time information. So if somebody's monkeying with the memory, you don't have to worry about it being out of sync with your database. The other part that's interesting is it brings in a new item here in your drop-down. It's the Intel Amd Terminal. This terminal allows us to make either a KVM, which is a VNC terminal, or we can do a serial over LAN, which is Telnet. Most everybody wants to use KVM, so that's what I'm going to demonstrate today. So we're going to go ahead and launch a KVM session. This is going to go directly to my client, and it is now active, and I have full control over this system. I can do whatever I really feel like doing. So that's all pretty nice and good. But you will probably already use Real VNC or some other TeamViewer or something along those lines. What's different here is we're talking to the hardware. And one of the things I like is if I have a customer who has blue screen, I can actually log into their system using this method, and we'll actually be able to display whatever the video is displaying. So a blue screen can be displayed, and I can find out what that code is and do some research. A lot more handy than having somebody read it off to me, and hopefully their dyslexia doesn't cause a problem. So then the next thing we can do with this tool is we can do IDER and boot to BIOS. Boot to BIOS is really simple through our tool. We just go in here and we enter a checkbox, or checkmark rather, and then I can do a power reset. Power reset's going to be power down, power up. It should already be powered down. It just needs to refresh the screen. There you go. And now it's booting to the BIOS. Really handy in case somebody's left a USB drive in and you have to reset the boot order in order to fix it. So I can go in here just like I would normally and make any changes as I want, make my changes, and then I'm good to go. Don't have to go to a desk side visit. So I'm just going to exit out. I'm going to refresh my screen. It should be black for a moment while it's in the boot screens, and eventually you'll see the Windows logo. There you go. Start normally, and we're good to go. So the other capability we have with this is IDER. I mentioned it a moment ago. Basically what we can do is we can take the hardware and tell it to take the IDE channel, also known as a CD-ROM, and point it out to an ISO out on a file share somewhere. So in this case, it's actually local to me, but it could be on a file share. Whatever my computer that I'm working off of, the admin box, is able to access, you can access, because it uses a driver to do this. So I can go in here and this is the one I want, so I'm going to click on that ISO, and now it's going to do a power reset again, but now the ISO is going to be mounted. So will that be performed? One thing that's interesting is when it actually does this, it's not opening it up over the web, it's actually downloading it to the system and then extracting it locally. So here in a second you will see it launch. And it should extract here in a couple seconds. The nice thing about this ISO, this is actually a small Linux ISO. It's like 7 megs in size, and what it does, it'll actually go out and look at a file share that I have on my network. And then if I need to do something large, like a WinPE, which would take a long time using IDE because the IDE speeds are slow, we can just switch over to Ethernet speeds. So for example, if I wanted to, I have a WinPE image up on my file share, and I'll show it to you here in just a second. Such as that light touch. I could do that light touch PE, or I could do any one of these different ISOs that are currently on here. One of my favorite ones, which I can show you right here, is actually remote drive mount. What this does is it boots to a different Linux ISO, and in this case it's doing it over the Ethernet. That's why it's so fast here. And what it does, it allows me to make a iSCSI connection to the device. And when I do that, I can mount the drive just as if it was local to me, and then I can perform any kind of action on it, such as scan for viruses, do backup, literally go and grab my documents folder off of it, and, all sorts of things I can do with this tool. All I have to do is enter the command line string that is shown here on the screen. Now actually there's 2 of them. So whenever we want to do something, we always want to remove the BIOS checkbox, and we want to enter our IDER, and we want to do a power reset. And now I'm going to go back to the operating system. One thing to always remember about power commands with vPro is until AMT 9 we did not have a graceful shutdown. So when you do it, it's like pulling the power plug. There is now a change gracefully, and if you check that, it will, on AMT 9 devices, will attempt to do a graceful shutdown. But otherwise, plan on it being a forced shutdown. So now the question is, how do I get to this place in life of vPro? Well, when you get your device, vPro by default is not enabled. It's dumb. It doesn't know how to communicate on the network. So you have to tell it, are you DHCP static? Are you DHCP enabled? What's my host name? Blah. So what that's called is configuration. And when we do configuration, there's 2 ways of going. There's 2 basic ways of going about it. It's through the operating system. I can run a tool called ACU Wizard, and I can configure using that tool. That'll put it into client control mode. And the other option is to do it in what's considered a more secure manner, and this would be a physical access through a USB key or manually through the MEBX. And when I talk about the MEBX, basically think of it as a second BIOS almost. It is firmware. We will be talking to it. And when you do go into it, you're going to hit Control P. You can usually hit Control P during boot, but it's not always easy to hit because it's like a 1-second window. So I usually recommend going through the one-time boot menu. It should be in the list. Depending on the OEM, it's Control P or F6. There's a couple others I've seen over the years. It just depends on the OEM and the BIOS. But usually it's almost always in the one-time boot menu. You can do it that way. And then there's another way. It's still considered to be the more secure method, and that's through a certificate server, but that's pretty uncommon because of network requirements. Now, the difference between doing it through the OS and the other methods is secure versus not as secured. And what we're going to do is, if you do it through the OS, you're going to be put into what's called client control mode. If you have the physical access or the certificates, you're going to be put into admin control mode. And really, the only difference between them is user consent. What I showed you when I went into the KVM, it did not ask for user consent, just went right in. However, if I was in a client control mode, it would give me a 6-digit field to enter data into, and that information is provided on the remote client screen. Is not able to be viewed locally at the admin. It has to be local to the client, so somebody will have to be there to read it to you. So if you want to have admin control mode, know you're going to have physical access or a certificate-based configuration. If you're not worried about the user consent, then you can do it through scripting and through the OS. That pretty much ends my demonstration. If there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Thanks, Joe. I want to take the screen back from you and just remind folks of a key tool they've got available from us, and that, to just recap it, is the Spiceworks V Pro Navigator. You can reach it at the URL at the bottom of this screen, and you also can reach us through the Navigator. Again, at the bottom of every page in the Navigator, there's an email link that comes directly to us. So please go ahead and check that out. Use that. Let us know what your questions are. We look forward to working with you guys. And again, thanks very much for spending part of your day with us.